This is a Motherland America magazine production.
Or just kind of repeat what you were saying yesterday after we talked about the video about the information that HEMUC was actually leaving out and what we actually, some of the things that we need to do as far as our nationality.
Okay. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you very well. I just put the phone down so I can get it recorded.
Okay. What has to happen here now? The first thing that has to be done is SF-181. Now, the reason why an SF-181, which is called Standard Form 181, has to be done is because black has no standing at law. And Barack Obama said that on the Tom Joyner morning show when he first got into office. And the reason for that being that black has no standing at law, there's a Dred Scott decision of 1857 where the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that no descendant of Africans was written, the Constitution was not framed or written for them in mind. So no descendant of Africans can be a citizen, and as such, no descendant of Africans has any rights that any white man was bound to respect. Now, the United States has, what they've done is they changed the race and ethnicity back in 1997. This is through the Office of Management and Budget, which incidentally reports directly to the president. They describe and define black as a person having origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa. Every time I talk with people who have gone to college, post-secondary, university, and I ask them, okay, can you name me any black racial groups of Africa? They all say there aren't any, or none that I'm aware of. So therefore, black and African American does not apply to you. The definition of white is a person having origins in the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. Now, Europe is named after an Ethiopian princess. The Middle East is too hot of a climate for so-called white people or Caucasians to originate from. And it's a known fact Caucasians do not originate from Africa. So that means that is a racial designation. And in other terms, for those that went to post-secondary, they talk about the Renaissance age, they talk about the age of enlightenment, and they also talk about the class system that existed in Europe. There was the upper class, a middle class, and a lower class. Black is code word for slave, period, point blank, done. So when HEMUC spoke about there's nothing you can do, anyone who's calling themselves black or African American, yes, they deserve to be killed, they deserve to be raped, they deserve no reparations, they are not entitled to rights, they're not entitled to any protections at law, they deserve that because they are using the word black, which has no standing at law. Black is supposed to be considered a constitutional attorney and an expert on constitutional law. So the best he could do for black people is tell them that the word black has no standing at law. Y'all gonna have to figure out the rest because he is not in a comfortable position. He has a position of assumed power, but the reality of it is he doesn't have it. So all the black people who are complaining that he should have done much more for black people. I hope you're recording this. Please, you're recording this, right?
Yes.
Beautiful. So what should have happened was black people should have asked the question, the most intelligent among, which would be your Cornel West, Dr. Cresswell, Tony Brown, Claude Anderson. Why would the president say that? The word black has no standing at law. Because blacks have never been free. They've just been given an illusion of freedom. So what has happened is now, up to 2015, they had the UN International Decade for People of UN International Decade for the World's Indigenous Peoples. That was 20 years. So from 2015 going back 10, will give you what, 1994? And then from 1994, 10 back will give you 1984. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, that would be 2005 and then 1994. So from 1994 and 10 is 2004. Then from 2004 and 10 is 2014. So the second international decade of the world's indigenous people ended last December on the Gregorian calendar. So what has happened is they have not given a third decade for people of indigenous peoples. They have deemed from 2015 to 2024 the UN International Decade for People of African Descent. Now, what confuses a lot of people sometimes is that they feel that, well, if you're African American, you can't be indigenous, and that's not the case. That's not true. If one does their due diligence and pays attention to the words that are being used, then one is going to see that everyone acknowledges that the first human bones were that of a quote-unquote black woman in Africa. So realizing this again, this goes to show and prove that they know who the original woman on the planet is. And then by default, anyone who resembles her would automatically have a state claim title to the rights that she would have had. So, with the original woman being indigenous, that would make the quote-unquote misnomer black woman indigenous, wouldn't it?
Yes.
And so then by default, all her descendants would by default be indigenous, which would mean every Melanonite, whether they're from Africa, whether they're over here, South America, the Pacific Islands, once you have melanin, you're automatically indigenous to the planet. Now, what happens is this creates a problem economically because people who are from Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Egypt, Congo, South Africa, etc., they know about themselves as either a tribe, clan, or a village. That's what they call themselves. They don't call themselves black in their own language. When they come or immigrate to the U.S., they are told they are classified as white. And the white that they're talking about is not pertaining to skin color. It's talking about commercial status. Then when you go online and you do a Google, I don't know if you can see my screen or not, you can see that free white person does not mean Caucasian race.
Right.
So
I knew that.
A Caucasian is a Caucasian, which is a deteriorating agent. A free white person is more, that pertains to us.
And you said a Caucasian is a deteriorating Asian?
Yeah, Caucus means body, Asian. And they are deteriorating Asians. And the reason they are deteriorating Asians is because they do not have the ability to what? Produce melanin. That is a scientific fact. That is not an opinion. This has been verified and confirmed by National Geographic. This is confirmed by Discovery Channel, Science International, the Human Genome Project. Those Amorites, we call them because Amorite means cave dweller because that's where they came from. That means that they are the ones who are from the cave. They are deteriorating. They are the mutants on the planet because of their inability to produce melanin. If they cannot produce melanin, they cannot stay underneath the sun. And so, where do you think melatonin comes from? Melatonin cannot be created in the lab. They are taking Nubians and killing them. That's why some of them go missing, like the brother in Georgia. The brother in Georgia, who his body was found rolled up in a dim mat and all his organs were gone. People who do organ transplant say that African Americans or black organs are the best organs for transplants.
Mm-hmm.
So they already know. So HEMOC is talking about things from an organic perspective, ignoring the fact that commerce is occurring. And so when he made the statements that he did on the interview with the sister, well, isn't there something? He said, there's nothing you can do. That's not true. We are in the International Decade for People of African Descent. It's going to end in 2024, and the theme is recognition, justice, and development. They have a 12-page program of activities of what countries should do to implement human rights, international law, etc. But the problem is black people still want to call themselves black. So then the question that I've always posed is, okay, if you are black, who told you that you are black? The same people who told you that you are white. And then they give you the definition of white based on race and ethnicity, that white is a person having origins in the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. Now, with Europe, they found bones going back 35,000 years ago. They reconstructed the bones, did the model, and what did it come out? Nigger.
It always does.
Pardon?
I say it always does. Oops.
I can't hear. What did you say?
I said it always does.
Yes, it always does. So that means that the original Europeans are Nubian. The original Middle Easterners are us. The original, of course, North Africa, that's a given. Now, when you look at the definition on the same form for American Indian or Alaska Native, they say the original peoples of North and South America, including Central America, who maintain tribal affiliation and community attachment. Now, there's a professor, he's a PhD, David Imhotep, wrote a book called The First Americans Were African. None of these Pan-Africanists like Professor Griff, KRS-One, Cornell West, who's the other one? Cornell West, Dr. Cresswell Singh, she never talked about it. Who else? Roland Martin, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Dick Gregory. None of these so-called black civil rights leaders and activists are talking about this book. So I've had to put them in the category of an agent. Because they've already found bones in Mexico going back about 15,000 years. They reconstructed them. What was it? Nigger again. And I state this, the original definition of nigger came from the East. And they were called the Nagas serpents who taught people. And some of them still exist today, and they look like us, and they live under the water. They live in the water. So we've been all over. So when they talk about white supremacy, the correct term should be leper supremacy. The inability for them to produce melanin. And that is what happened. So when HEMOC made those ignorant statements, and they were deliberately done to mislead people, and I questioned him on that, he had nothing to say except to get upset. And I said, well, the standard Form 181 has to be filled because the Social Security number is a tracking number that can be used internationally. What the United States, which is no longer organic, it is now corporate, has done is they have converted everyone, regardless of quote-unquote color, into economic chattel slavery or chattel property. And so since they have done this, what has now occurred is now that it's all based on commerce. And what's his name? Alan West even admitted that the president is just the CEO of this corporation called the United States of America, which is registered in Delaware twice. It's a religious corporation, which is underneath the Elizabeth II, who people misquote her, misnomer her, they call her queen, and they can as far as the word queen means prostitute. She is the manager, the owner is the Vatican.
Wow.
So they have played a game, just like Dr. Kress-Walton said, well, try to look at this as a chessboard and a game. And the game being played is if I can get you to call yourself black, knowing it is a negative resonance, negative energy, negative frequency, a destructive energy, etc., and you embrace that, I've won.
Wow.
I've won. Now, Raven Simone said she is not African American. People got upset. Then she followed up, said she's dark white. They got further upset. Who was the other one? Whoopi Goldberg said that she said that I am not a chick American. I'm not a African American. I'm an American, and my people have been here since the 1700s. So the code is that she was telling the public that she's indigenous without actually saying it, because Whoopi's trying to make sure that her royalty checks keep coming in.
Right.
So when you have this type of reality taking place, then it tells you that are these black entertainers really serious about freedom outside of the matrix, off the plantation, or is it they just want freedom to live in this delusionary paradise? And then when something happens to the field Negroes, they are concerned because they are playing a part in keeping the field Negroes in the field.
Yeah.
So Hemok should have knew better, especially when he's familiar with me, and we spoke a couple years back, and he reminded me that I told him not to communicate with him again, and he honored that. So then when I said, well, how are you going to go to the United Nations in New York, which is not the real one, and state that you're the first ever indigenous to speak on behalf of indigenous people, then you're going to turn around and say that nobody was before you. I said, no, you have to get called. So I told him, I said, you won't even say Turtle Island. That's the original name. All tribes, it doesn't matter if they are Dene, Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Seminole, they all, Yamasee, they all call here. It is all anciently known as Turtle Island, one of many names. He says North America. So I'm saying if you are going to tell me you're indigenous and you're going to use the word North America, when old maps that they have can verify that either they had Turtle Island or there was no name, it was just a new, it was just a new country or new land, then you, again, are not dealing with facts. So I called him out on it, and Taylor, who's the one who did the interview, I emailed her, and then she was doing a radio show on what do we teach the children. And I said, you teach the children the truth. Tell them that they are white and not black, and explain to them what the word means. We say white power all the time on our weekly addresses. We say white power all the time when we're talking on the phone. We say white power. Nobody says anything. Because the first thing we're going to say is, well, the U.S. Department of Education is the one that has given the definition of what Asian, Hispanic, American Indian, black, white, etc. is. Then there's another organization called ACRO. I sent you that information.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now ACRO is international. There's like 40 countries. There's members from 40 countries that are members of ACRO. ACRO is actually still in Washington. However, the thing is that ACRO is accepting and endorsing the fact that these are the definitions of race, which are now used all over the planet. So when Barack went and changed the race and ethnicity, said we're no longer going to use Oriental, we're going to take that off and use Asian, and we're going to take off black and use Negro. He said we're going to take off Negro and put black or / African American. Right? It's the same thing. The Nubians haven't gone nowhere. So the solution, the first, is to do what? Have the SF-181 done and have your race and ethnicity changed immediately. You're not entitled to human rights. You're not entitled to indigenous rights. You're not entitled to protections under the law. If you believe the Constitution is sound, you have no constitutional rights. You have nothing. And this was the point that was made. So all the information and the data that I sent you yesterday, and that now is a matter of public record. And I did an open letter to the working group of experts on people of African descent to inform them that, you guys can't sit there and play stupid when you were given that form, the iPads, which is the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System, and they're collecting data for post-secondary schools, as well as our definition, we call it leper supremacy, not white supremacy. So now, they knew about this since January. They got 5 members that are all, one's from Jamaica, one's from South Africa. They count as one. One is from the Philippines, other one is from France, and who's the other one? 2, Jamaica, Philippines, France, and I think Denmark. I have the link there with all of them. So they know about this, and that's why I wrote the open letter and said, look, you all have a situation where you have a conflict of interest, because when you start telling these children they're white and it has nothing to do with their skin color, it's a commercial status, and they're living in a world of commerce, and that's the highest caste system they want to be in, these children are going to go with it. But what happens is it makes all the black educators look stupid. And that's what the black educators are concerned with, because now nobody's going to want to listen to them, or they're going to have a very difficult time, because people are saying, well, you're supposed to be leading us and be cutting edge. Why didn't you tell us about this?
Wow.
So the answer is quite simple. Do the SF-181 with the attachments. I sent you the indigenous standing process. I know you have that. Mm-hmm. And then after that's done, you have to do a statutory declaration and declare your indigenous standing. That's in line with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And he barely mentioned that, and he's not talking about the fact that, okay, we have to realize we are stuck in a monopoly world. They're not using terms based on English. They're using terms based on Black's Law Dictionary or a financial dictionary. Everything that you have, an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, is commercial paper. And if you're holding commercial paper, you're considered an expert. I'm just using this as an example. And every 8.5 by 11, or if you have a license, or if you have a certificate that you got from university, that's all commercial paper. It's all commerce. If you watch the movie Jupiter Ascending, it was all about commerce and contracts in that movie, from start to finish. Even if they're extraterrestrials, it's all business.
Wow.
So now I'm going to yield, because I know you all now have a whole bunch of questions.
Ron, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go ahead?
You can go ahead. I'll jump in.
Okay. Well, my first question is, I see the instructions, and I understand the SF-181 and how to do that. Now, the statutory declaration, can you explain a little bit more about what that is? And here it's saying it's going to somebody named Nico. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now? Okay. And it's saying it's something that needs to go to someone named Nicole TNI at Yahoo. Is that someone in your organization?
That's you spoke with her.
I did?
Or did you speak with me? No, you
spoke with you.
She's head of our administration. And you can contact her or myself, because what I'll do is I will email you the template. And then you put your personal information in. I will proof it to make sure that it is done correctly. Then I say, okay, this is fine. Attach HCR 194, the Pope's apology to indigenous peoples, the Pope's message of peace, and the motu proprio. The motu proprio is one of the most important documents, because what the Pope did is he took away immunity from all public officials on the planet.
Now,
most people don't do that. Yes.
Who does that go to? This statutory declaration, who does it go to?
Oh, you'll send that to the governor. So if you're in Maryland, you'll send it to the governor of Maryland.
Okay.
Because that's in line with Article 3 of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, where it says indigenous peoples have a right of self-determination. Presidential Proclamation 7500 that George Bush did, he stated that our government would honor and protect tribal sovereignty. So, in House Resolution 194, which is the U.S. Congress apology to African Americans for slavery, in there, the President stated that, not the President, but the Congress stated that they will make it a point to make sure that human rights violations are not committed against African Americans in the future. Now, in the beginning, they state we do acknowledge we rob African Americans of their names and their heritage. You must have a land, a language, and a culture. And even if your land is taken from you, that does not mean you don't have a right, title, or interest in it. But you're not going to get that calling yourselves black. Period. End of story. This is what's going on internationally. So all, like Malik Shabazz, I called him, he knows. Benjamin Crump, Joe Brown, Justice Matheson, Terry Hatchett, Marilyn Mosby, and I already said that she would not win the Freddie Gray case. But she's not going to win that. She's playing games. I'll get justice for y'all. Now, a year later, she's going to be disbarred. She's up for being disbarred, and she got 5 police officers suing her. And her family comes from a family of police officers. Wow. So the bottom line is that she's stupid. She has an oath to Elizabeth II, which is called the Bar, British Accredited Registry. So her first obligation is to the Bar. The definition under Corpus Juris Secundum, number 7, is that an attorney's first obligation is to the court, not their client. And if there's an issue where the client's interests conflict with that of the court, the former must yield to the latter. So the court comes first. A client is defined under Corpus Juris Secundum and subsection 2 to 3 that a client, a word of the court is a client is a word of the court, and the word of the court is defined as a child or a person of unsound mind. When Nubians are complaining that, the government's looking at us that we're children, that's exactly what it's called. It's called parens parai, which means that the government is the parent. And the people who think they're citizens, which are chattel, are the children.
Wow. Okay. So I was most interested in seeing how the whole process goes once you do the SF 181, because
Statutory declaration goes to the governor. Then from the statutory declaration, you have to do a statutory claim and mail that to the IRS.
And what does that claim do?
Statutory claim is there's an IRS code called 21.7.13.3.2.2, and that code is in accord with the 1666 Death-to-Keep by Trust Act and the 1707 Death-to-Keep by Trust Act. There was 3 acts, one in 1540, 1666, and 1707. And in the 1666, it states, if an individual has gone missing for 7 years and there's nothing to confirm they're alive, they are considered lost at sea. Then in 1707, it states that if a person who was previously lost at sea has now been found, they must issue a declaration or some statement of confirmation that they are alive. So, with the statutory claim, what happens is when you're born, the mother signs the birth certificate selling you to the state. So they effectively kill you. That's what the birth registration of a live birth, depending on what word they use in which state. After that, what the next thing happens is you get what? A Social Security number. Now with the Social Security number, what happens? The manual of the code that I just gave you says that a decedent is an infant that has yet to receive an SSN. And an infant can be a trustor, grantor of a trust. So what that means is the Social Security Administration does not consider you alive until you get a Social Security number. Understand?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you're born, the birth registration is done, you're killed, then you're resurrected after death via the Social Security number.
But as a corporate vehicle, a commercial vehicle. Oh, I was saying, but as a commercial vehicle then.
Yeah, that's a vessel. That's not you on that ID or the Social Security, that's a vessel. But what happens is they trick people into saying that's them, therefore they fall into the same trap as the treacherous three from Superman 2, where they fall into the Phantom Zone, which was about let's say a 1/4 inch crystal square glass floating through space. And so they're 3-dimensional, the light goes up, it's flat, using this paper as an example, and then it floats through space and then they got trapped in it. That's the same thing with an ID, library card, etc. That's not you, but people have been tricked into thinking that that is them, which is a vessel. So anything that happens, they can't really punish the vessel, but when you say that's you, your body now goes in front of the vessel and gets electrocuted or punished. These are the games that they're playing. So this is not something that a lot of people will feel comfortable accepting, because Nubians especially thought they were free, and then you have to tell them, no, it was a lie, it's an illusion. And that's why they're killing all these Nubian men out there, because black has no standing at law. You have no right. Don't expect Malik Shabazz to help you. Do not expect Professor Public Enemy, who's the other one, David Banner, and he's full of it because I sent him that information. So David Banner knows. Azalea Banks, she knows. I tweeted her directly. Farrakhan knows. When he said, am I the only one that can speak to power? I said, no, I did it and you quit lying. So this is all games these people are playing. So to me, it seems that William Shakespeare's statement that the world is a stage and people are merely players. So therefore that would mean Farrakhan and a lot of them are actors, because how can they say they're not aware of this form if they say they want to free their people? Because their existence is based upon the word black. They cannot foresee being able to generate revenue without saying the word black.
Wow. So
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to... No, you finish, because I won't forget my question.
Cornel West knows about the SF-181. He's known about it since February. He was supposed to do a letter of recommendation that the brother in Baltimore asked him to do. Then when he sent a representative of his to New York to get the letter of recommendation, Cornel West said, the message he got, because he wasn't there, was he's been so busy, but he's not unwilling. And since then, the brother has not heard from him. So he didn't have time, but he had time to endorse Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders turns around last week and sells out and throws all the people who were working and assisting him on the altar or under the bus or in the road to get killed. Blood ritual, that's what these guys do, for Hillary Clinton. And it's a known fact Hillary Clinton should have been prosecuted for the emails. But the reason for that is, according to information that we got, and some of you may have seen, an FBI insider said if they go after her, it'll bring down the whole government. And it's not the emails. They said, forget the emails. It's the Clinton Foundation. They said, focus on the Clinton Foundation, not the emails. So when Bernie Sanders, this was last Saturday, not this Saturday that passed, but the 16th, the 9th. So when Bernie Sanders came back on Monday or Tuesday and said, yes, we have to make sure that Hillary Clinton gets elected, I said, oh, you probably donated money to her foundation. You probably was using her foundation to hide money. So if she goes down, you're going to go with her. So now he has to come and tell his people, vote for her. So people are like, what's going on? Cornel West goes in front of the Democratic National Committee for whatever they were having that last week and says, yeah, he starts talking about the fighting going on between the Palestinians and the Israelis. I said, why aren't you talking about what's happening here? I said, oh, your focal point, you got your marching orders in your papers because you're a professor at Princeton, so he wants to make sure that he still keeps his tenure. So he's like, we have to tell the truth. I said, oh, we have to tell the truth. Well, according to the New York Times article that Cornel West, the interview he did, he said he wants to be like Jesus. So when I hear somebody saying something like that, they want to be like Jesus and he's Nubian, I'm like, okay, you want to be like an Amorite, you want to be like a Caucasian. But according to what he was taught, that Jesus was the one who said that this is a change in the air. He signaled a change of the status quo. Cornel West is not doing that. He knows about that form. He knows about black has no standing at law. So I don't feel any way about blazing his ass, Dick Gregory's ass, Chuck D's ass. I don't feel no way about that. Because the game is over. Dr. Cresswell-Singh, who wrote the ISIS papers, was given that, the SF-181, the ISIS, which you read when we spoke yesterday. She got leper supremacy because she put the challenge out on high-frequency radio saying that if anybody has a better definition of white supremacy, give it to me. And I did. And then high-frequency cousin came on our open weekly addresses because we don't do them open anymore. We do them closed for people that are going to contribute, that want to work to build, not people who want education. Entertainment education, as they call it. I'm not interested in coming up here and putting on a show. They need to go find somebody else to do that. I'm not doing that Millennium Minstrel, and I love Bamboozle. I love that movie. Because nothing has changed from since when Spike Lee did the movie till now.
No.
So when Cedric the Entertainer and all these, 300 people come to this place, black Hollywood bands together, I said, yes, for black Hollywood, not for black people, because part of the ritual that may involve, he might have to have some men go up in him in order to get the contracts that he has. Some of the women is going to, hey, we got 5 guys here, here's the ritual, you do this, and you're going to get the next movie, the next 3 movies, you're going to get paid $15 million for each movie, but you're going to do this here.
Wow.
So all that Black Panther, Black Power nonsense. And now you see what happens. Now that the U.S. has opened up with Cuba, you watch. They're going to go after Assata Shakur.
I keep hearing that.
That's why it's wrong.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I keep hearing that that's what they plan to do.
They're going to do that because remember, who went first? Jay-Z. And in order to go to Cuba before everything was lifted, because Jay-Z got access to Barack Obama. He can go up in that White House anytime he wants. He went down first, but he had to go through the Commerce Department first. Check this out. He had to go through the Commerce Department to get an authorization to go to Cuba. And then when him and Beyonce were in Cuba, we don't know if he went and found Assata and told her, hey, well, I got a message. You need to look. They're about to lift this stuff. You better figure something out. And I've got this message because he could have sent, Barack could have sent the message via Jay-Z and Beyonce to her. The only thing I found interesting was that Beyonce did an open letter to the Pope, spilling all her beans. I'm like, look, like Dr. Clark said, Dr. John Henry Clark, he said, look, Nubians are too busy trying to make friends and trying to be accepted. He said, if you want a friend, look in the mirror. You have no friends. That's what Nubians do not want to accept. So when I saw that Cornel West didn't have the time to write a simple letter of recommendation, and he sat for 30 minutes, and his brother wasn't expecting to talk so long. And he was like, yeah, he just sat there, and then when the 30 minutes was up, he said, well, what is it that you want from me? What do you want me to do? So when he talked about the letter of recommendation, he said, okay, you'll come back next month and I'll have your letter for you. From that all to supporting, what's his name, Bernie Sanders, and then Bernie Sanders jumping ship and just stopping his whole campaign and going behind Hillary proved that the individual on that message board was an FBI insider and said, yes, this situation is not that she's going to get off. It's just that the danger is for them and the FBI. They already know what she's doing is going to bring down the whole U.S. government. And so Cornel West does that and says, well, I disagree with my brother. And I'm sitting there like, do you not even see that your credibility now is shot because you came up there, hugged him, smiled, like we're brothers, yes, endorse Bernie Sanders. All the black men for Bernie Sanders, I I'd laugh in their face and say, y'all are damn stupid. Y'all still ain't learned nothing. That's all it is at this stage. And I have no sympathy for Negroes. America, the definition of America, they have the copper-colored races. A higher definition says no mercy for the sheep.
Yeah. Okay.
Who has woolly hair like sheep?
That would be us.
Okay. Playtime is over. All these artists and whatnot know. So hey, they choose that contract. They deserve what comes to them.
Okay, so I'm going to get back to my question about the instructions you sent. So after you go through all of these steps, what happens after that?
Okay, after the statutory declaration, the statutory claim, you have to do what's called a UCC-1 financing statement, whereby you're going to now become a creditor, not a debtor. Let me tell you something. You have people saying, we can fix your credit. They advertise, you know how to fix your credit? Do that SF-181 form and fax that in, and your credit will automatically go up. We had 2 anglers in New Jersey. His went from poor to excellent. His wife, she called and said it went from 540 to 720. Her credit score went. Her husband had a lot of Social Security money he was supposed to get, and he wasn't getting it from before. And she said now they gave him back all the Social Security that he was supposed to get. White power. Black has no standing at law. Period. White power. That's what's going to happen. They're they're going to start looking, and because, again, there's a professor by the name of Mustafa Hefni. He's been fighting the U.S. government for 25 years to change his classification from black. Like, well, he was white, and so he wants to have it changed from white to black. He said when he first immigrated to the U.S., he was told, in this country, you're white. He is supposed to be an intellectual and is focused on skin color, not realizing it isn't about skin color. It's about commercial status or a caste system. And then he said they told him, stay away from the African Americans here. Do not associate with them. You have nothing to do with these people. You all have a language and a culture and a history, but to them, stay away from them. You don't see no Africans. You don't see no Africans protesting, do you?
No.
Not protesting. Okay, so why do you think that is? Because they know they are what? White. You don't hear any situations, not too many. They are very few and far. But you don't see situations where you hear an African getting killed by police. That's not by coincidence. So, people have been praying for a solution, a miracle, help from the universe. Even the metaphysicians, they got metaphysicians like Panic in New York. There's Panic, there's Azaziel Bay in New York. All these people who have met Dr. Phil Valentine, all these guys that said, how is it that I can see this and y'all can't see this? That you have to call yourself white. Now, when we talk about the word black, it's defined as swarthy, evil, untrustworthy, negative, melancholy. That's just the word. So, for those who are into science, metaphysics, etc., when you say the word black, you, as your body being an antenna and a receiver, you're sending out a negative signal to the universe, which is like a giant pool of water. So even in the air, you are creating ripples if you don't enunciate, or if you say it mentally or telepathically. You are constantly sending signals out to the universe. The universe knows who you are, but it's like you're insulting the universe by calling yourself black. The universe is like, you are an aberration to creation. Terminate you.
Wow. So let me ask this question. Other than credit scores going up, how would one's life change after going through this whole process?
I can't tell you how your life is going to change. All I can say is it is going to change, and I can give you examples, which I just stated, because again, it's very much like Matrix when Morpheus told Neo. Unfortunately, nobody can be told what the Matrix is. They can only be shown. So the SF-181 page that we have on the internet is for people to see, yes, there's other people who have done it and they are having success. The credit scores at their job, they're getting an increase in their wages. They're getting treated differently. And then some of the quote-unquote white people who work there, they won't say nothing. The human resources is not going to say nothing. So when they don't say anything, your natural intuition should tell you, so you mean to tell me this whole time you don't know we're not black and you're letting us go through this? Not their contract. It's not their responsibility. It's a secret, but the secret's in front. Where do you hide something from humans? Put it in front of their face. Where do you hide something from niggers? In a book, because niggers don't read.
Yep.
So what I can say is I'll give you an example. Brother I spoke with in Indiana, he's got some people he's telling, and guess this week or next week, a few more of them are going to be, they've already done their SF-181, they're going to be doing the statutory declaration in their claim, and he told a homeboy of his, now his homeboy has a Caucasian that he hangs out with. So they pull up, and he's been trying to tell me, hey, man, you got to check 181 form, fax that in, publish it, email it, get that out there. So his friend kind of didn't believe him. However, his friend's associate was a Caucasian. So he, I guess, was leaning in the truck telling him, hey, you need to fill that form out. So the Caucasian is on the passenger side hearing this. And he said, yeah, because the Caucasian admitted that he was in jail. So he said, yeah, I've been to jail. I know. He said, I know you are not in your correct status. Now, that's his homeboy. A Caucasian is his homeboy. He said, yeah, I know you're not in your correct status. He said, and you need to fill that form out. So the brother who talks to me said, you know this? How you know about the world? I've been around. They know. And that's why I got on the United Nations and did the open letter by saying if the United Nations working group of experts, I don't know how someone from the Philippines, France, and Denmark becomes an expert on people of African descent and have no melanin, I don't know how they're an expert. They know about this. So I'm saying if you all really care, I don't know if you got a chance to read it, the open letter or not. I said, if you really care about people of African descent, what you're supposed to be doing is saying, listen, at the next meeting, okay, you African Americans, you need to fill out this SF-181. These are the attachments, fax it into the OMB, and now that will give you access to human rights. And on the flip side of the SF-181, the Caucasians don't fit any of the categories on that SF-181. The closest they could come to is black, because black doesn't exist. No land, no language, no culture. So the people who call themselves Caucasians at best, are black. So it goes back to the old saying, for those that took philosophy classes in college, what's black is white and what's white is black.
Mm-hmm.
When you take a picture of somebody who is Nubian, if you take in photography, they are going to come up in the negative. What color? White.
Right.
And a person who is white, you take a picture of them in the negative. What color will the white person come up in the negative?
Black.
So now, how come now it's so difficult for these educated Nubians to not accept the fact that, listen, the marching, the blocking the highways, that ain't gonna work. That has to stop. You need another solution. What is the solution? The SF-181. And this is what HEMOC was saying, you can't do anything. And I'm like, no, because I've done it. I've got people up here, where I'm up in northern Turtle Island, misnomer is Edmonton, Alberta. And I have a brother, he's from Barbados, and he just did his, and I assisted him to make sure it was tailored because Canada thinks they're separate from the U.S., and they're not. They're registered on the Securities and Exchange Commission. So by default, they fall under jurisdiction of the United States, which is the 10-mile square. And Canada gave their sovereignty over to the U.S. back on February 2nd, 2011. So when you see the, they called it the Three Amigos Conference that they had in a couple weeks ago, Barack came up and had a Three Amigos Conference, and they said they're going to create what's called a North American Caucus. This means that Canada, the U.S., and Mexico, they're going to take the borders out and put the borders on the circumference of the continent, not in between. That's why the U.S. Immigration, ICE, all those guys, they're being told don't arrest Mexicans, or if you catch them sneaking in, you release them in the U.S. You don't even take them to jail. They got some Chinese who want to come to the U.S. are coming into the U.S. through Mexico.
Wow.
So this is over. So again, this is the question that I'm making, and the point that I'm making is that how is it that you all see this? You read the information yesterday, Edna, and all the Tyler Smileys, Dick Gregory's, what's his name, Reverend Martin's, all these BET, but BET is full of it because they're owned by Viacom, so it's not black-owned, so that's a bunch of nonsense. If the Jews say they don't want this, that, or the next, they can make that, they can make a statement to, what's her name, forget homegirl's name who's running BET. They can tell her to do this, that, and the next, because they still don't have news on BET.
No.
So that tells you who's running that. The Jews are running that, and everyone's all, you know, you can't say anything. That's being anti-Semitic. I said they're converts. They even admit they're converts. They're Khazars. How can they say that they're God's chosen, and they don't even have, they have at best 50% Y chromosome. They don't even have 85% chromosome. That's passed down from father to son. So these are the things that, what's going to happen, you make sure your doctor, human resources department, if you're in a union, make sure the steward knows anything along those lines where a social security number is involved. They get a copy of everything that you fax on, be not just the one page, everything inclusive of the fax cover sheet. You publish. Publish is important, and we do, publishing is critical. Because once you put that on the internet, that's international public notice that you have claimed and declared your indigenous standing to the world. Because again, we are in the UN International decade, 10 years for people of African descent. So that's why I look at the Nation of Islam funny. I look at a lot of the New Black Panther Party funny. It's a known fact most of them guys are CIA anyway. Because it's interesting how these black men can walk the street with AK-47s and guns, and the police don't arrest them. They don't mess with the Black Panthers out in the public. Mm-hmm. You got Nubians that say, yes, I have a gun permit, I have this, and they get killed. So what's that telling you? Some of those Black Panthers are what? Agents.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel Assata Shakur is an agent, because if she was born back in the 60s and in that time frame, how the hell is a black woman that's locked up in jail breaking out of jail and making it to Cuba? And she probably didn't speak Spanish. That's just like what happened with Martin Luther King. Jesse Jackson set him up, and I don't get why people are still hanging around him. That's what got me with Dick Gregory, because he was with Stephen Coakley. Mm-hmm. And when Stephen Coakley exposed the Boule and how Martin Luther King was set up by Jesse, and the fact, and when they had to commemorate the march on the march in Selma, Dick Gregory is out front, and in the back is a whole bunch. They have one white guy, one Caucasian, and you have Jesse Jackson standing next to Martin Luther King Jr. III. And I'm sitting there, so you're going to sit there and hold a banner with the man that killed your father? Sorry. No, we don't roll like that. And Dick Gregory is out in front of that wearing the shirt. So I'm saying, now, what would you be doing there marching if you already were with Stephen Coakley and you know for a fact that Martin Luther King was set up by this guy as a killer, but then Dick Gregory saying he's a Christian and believe in God?
Mm.
Exodus chapter 20 says, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. That's Exodus chapter 20:13. So when I see these things, you know, it's apparent. And then the biggest thing that I said, I've been calling out Dick Gregory saying he ain't saying nothing, so I already know what he's about. Because you don't say that the U.S. government's trying to kill you, and then you go to the U.S. Census Bureau to do a comedy skit that you got paid $15,000 for. In the belly of the beast, and do a set there.
You're right.
That was a couple of years ago. It didn't come out till, I think, late last year or early this year, that Dick Gregory got $15,000 for doing that. He got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and when he got that, That was the Monday after we had did a weekly address, and I called out Dick Gregory. Then the Monday, he gets a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He got a big smile on his face, and I'm like, okay, I have to look at you funny because you like to say people are stupid.
This is a Motherland America magazine production.